At a meeting of the Emergency Management Committee of Cabinet earlier today, we determined that several new measures are necessary to further strengthen protection for Albertans for both their health and economic impacts of the COVID-19 crisis. First, the maximum size of group gatherings is immediately reduced from 50 to no more than 15. So that's from 50 to 15. This includes family gatherings such as weddings, funerals, as well as religious celebrations. And while getting outdoors for fresh air and exercise is important to both our physical and mental health, this must not occur in groups of more than 15 people. Also, at all such gatherings, indoors and out, the 2-meter social distancing guideline must be observed. And to further prevent large group gatherings, we are closing vehicle access to provincial parks and public lands. Minister Nixon will have more to say about this in just a few minutes. The second new measure we're announcing today is the immediate closure of non-essential businesses, including close contact businesses like hair salons and barbershops, tattoo and piercing studios and aesthetic services, as well as wellness studios and clinics. And non-emergency and non-critical health services provided by regulated health professionals or registered professionals, including dentistry, physiotherapy, massage, podiatry, chiropractic, and optometry services. Furthermore, all dine-in restaurants must close now for dine-in service, but they can continue to offer takeout and delivery services. Non-essential retail stores like clothing stores, computer and gaming stores, and services in shopping malls such as hobby and toy stores, gift and specialty item stores, and furniture stores must also close at this time. All of these closures will be subject to the enhanced penalties and enforcement provisions that were introduced by the government earlier this week. The actions we are taking are tough but necessary to protect public health. We understand that behind every such decision lies tens of thousands of jobs and businesses that will throw people into economic and financial anxiety. And I'll say more about what we and the Government of Canada are doing in a moment to try to assist those individuals facing this time of great economic challenge. But the more that we comply with rules like these being recommended by our public health experts, the faster we can get through all of this and restart our economy. These rules are consistent with the array of public health and economic measures that we have implemented over the last 3 weeks to contain the spread of the virus and protect the health, safety, food, shelter, and income security of the most vulnerable. Of course, large parts of our economy have effectively ground to a halt, and many people are hurting. That is why we've acted with so many measures, including the Alberta Self-Isolation Emergency Payment to bridge people until they can qualify for the widely enhanced federal employment insurance benefits with a one-time payment for 2 weeks of over $1,100. Already, over 16,000 applications have been processed by Service Alberta, and more than $18.5 million has been dispersed to folks in self-isolation. And I apologize on behalf of the government for the fact that the Service Alberta site crashed a couple of times. Frankly, it was never designed for this kind of overwhelming demand. And I want to thank our officials at Service Alberta for working around the clock for the last 2 days to maintain service so that those applications can be made and processed. We have also moved to protect Albertans unable to pay their power and heating bills due to COVID-related financial hardship by working with utility companies to defer payments for 90 days without fear of being cut off. Furthermore, we are implementing a 6-month interest-free moratorium on student loan payments, and we've frozen the education portion of property taxes at last year's level, a move that will save Albertans $45 million. We've also worked with Alberta Treasury Board, branches, financial credit unions, and the major chartered banks to encourage deferrals on mortgage payments and on terms for loans and credit. Today, we are announcing that we are allowing businesses to defer the tourism industry levy until August 31st. This will free up $5 million in cash that can be used to pay employees and to keep the lights on. Today, I'd like to make an important announcement about supporting renters who are concerned about their ability to pay their rent during this challenging time. Minister Glubich will provide more details, but it's important to note that the actions we are announcing today are designed to address the needs of renters, but also to ensure that landlords don't end up going out of business, because if they did that, that would reduce the availability of housing to Albertans. So this is a balanced but strong package to help renters who are under financial pressure right now. First, no one will be evicted April 1 for non-payment of rent. I repeat, no one will be evicted at the beginning of the next month for non-payment of rent. Civil enforcements of evictions currently underway for tenants for non-payment of rent will be suspended until April 30. And that includes folks who had not been able to pay their rent for the last few months. Second, no one will see their rent increase while Alberta's state of public health emergency remains in effect. I repeat, we are putting a freeze on the rent levels as they are effective today. There will be no rent increases, including rent increases for which notice was given months ago. Third, no one will pay late fees for missing their rent payments over the next 3 months. Again, we are suspending late fees for late payment. And fourth, for as long as the public health emergency remains in effect, landlords will be obliged to negotiate payment plans that accommodate their renters' financial circumstances. Renters will be obliged to pay their rent as fully and consistently as possible, and both the renters and the landlords will be obliged to take into account the financial supports they are getting from the provincial and federal governments. So that is to say, I know there's a lot of folks who had to self-isolate or they got laid off in the last 2 or 3 weeks. They haven't had income, but in April, they should either be receiving right now the Government of Alberta emergency isolation payments, or in April, the enhanced federal employment insurance benefits that should help many people to make the rent in the future. Finally, to be clear, all these protections will be voided for any renter who willfully damages or commits criminal acts within their landlord's property. We want landlords to understand that they can still protect the value of their property from renters who may be breaking the law or damaging their property. I want to thank the Government of Canada for a number of measures introduced this week, including today's announcement about a 75% salary replacement or subsidy program for the employees of small and medium-sized enterprises. This is something that I've been strongly advocating with the Government of Canada for the past 2 weeks. In fact, I spoke to most of the premiers who endorsed this concept, and I'm very happy to see that this is being implemented, because it will allow businesses, small and medium-sized employers, to keep a connection with their employees during this challenging time, which will allow for a faster restart of the economy when we get through this. Having said that, I need to reiterate Alberta's urgent call for serious federal action for liquidity for our oil and gas industry. Today, the price of Western Canadian Select oil has been trading as low as $5. There is a flood of OPEC oil coming on to the North American energy markets. This, in my view, constitutes predatory dumping by unfriendly dictatorships that are seeking to drive the North American energy producers out of business. We cannot let them win. And that is one of the reasons earlier today I spoke to the U.S. Undersecretary of State for Energy, Francis Fannin, and other leaders in Washington. Over the days to come, I will be speaking to both congressional and administration leaders and governors in the United States about pursuing coordinated North American action to defend our energy jobs and industry from this predatory dumping by OPEC into our market, which jeopardizes our entire economy. Yesterday, I spoke to all 12 of my colleagues, premiers of the provinces and territories, and I want to pass on to Albertans how touched I am to hear profound expressions of support and solidarity for this province, given that we're not just going through the COVID crisis and the global recession, but also a massive attack against our largest industry. And I heard from premiers from coast to coast, right across the political spectrum, who said that Alberta has been there for Canada, for their provinces and regions, for decades, and now Canada needs to be there for Alberta. And I heard the strongest possible endorsement for our call for emergency federal credit backstop to provide for liquidity for our oil and gas sector. Yesterday, I also spoke to the board of the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers and discussed with them other things that the government of Alberta is doing to help them get through this, the most challenging time in the history of Canada's energy sector. Let me be blunt with Albertans. We are facing what will likely be the largest single contraction in our economy in our history. These are going to be very challenging days ahead. Governments are acting, and we are a resilient and remarkably innovative people. I want Albertans to understand with realism what we are about to go through, what many people are already going through. But please remember that we have each other, and we will get through this.